everybody. Can you hear me? Welcome to the show. We got some nice color bars for you. How do you like that? How do you like them apples? Oh yeah, look at that. Alright, thank you for coming back and joining us. We have a special stream, so I'm gonna hit play on the VCRs, and let's just let her buck, right? Yeah. Okay. Thank you for watching. Now to the show.
The chance to see their well-disguised nests. Here, a female resembling a piece of metallic green jewelry sits on her nest. She's built the nest herself and will raise the young without any help from the male. Ruby throats do not stay together after mating. The male will have a few brief involvements with several females during the nesting season. He considers this his only duty.
Born in these places frigid and remote. Barriers to moisture from the North Pacific. During the past 2 million years, their kind has dominated nearly 1/3 of the total land area of this planet.
To see the places and relive the events that shaped our world, as Reader's Digest presents History Happened Here.
Rising from the desert sands of Egypt, the Great Pyramid bears silent witness to civilizations that have flowered and decayed. More than a mausoleum, it may guard the secrets.
Begin asking for food soon after hatching, and the adults will feed them small pieces of crushed berries. The nest will always be kept neat and clean. On hot days, the parent birds will wet their feathers in the pond, then moisten and cool the easily sunburned young, often standing over them to provide shade from the hot sun. A male ruby throat stops to feed. These short-tempered little fancy bands can take over a feeder. Here a female looks back to make sure he's not around. Nesting birds have many problems to contend with. Rainstorms and strong winds can easily destroy a nest. A strong wind gives the hummer nest a wild ride. They survive, and the female continues feeding her young.
The river of death. But when the mummy was the god king himself, what would the Egyptians do to him?
In the tradition of their immense ancestors, these glaciers are masters.
To find out, you must travel to Luxor, Egypt, where time seems to spin backwards, pulling you along with it into the age of the pharaohs.
It's built on a pi ratio We know the Egyptians didn't have that information,
We're going to
and yet it's there.
reincarnation from the point of view of
Even more inconceivable, embedded within the pyramid's interior passageways and chambers may be a timeline foretelling the future. Author Richard Noon.
The ancient astronomer, stonemasons that constructed the Great Pyramid, incorporated within the structure, etched in stone, a 6,000-year calendar.
Embodied in the design of the pyramid, we find three very significant dates. One of them is the birth of Christ, 1,000 years.
Belief in reincarnation, that is the rebirth of the soul in a new body after death. I think one of the most interesting findings is that there is very little difference in those who believe in life after death on the basis.
It's like a disturbance in the landscape. I think they're drawn to it.
They're almost like a mandala, which is a shape which is used in a lot of ancient
Ascending passage starts going up. At the date the law was given on Mount Sinai to Moses.
The vast Egyptian empire is just a boy, 8 years old. Tutankhamun has two guardians. Warrior who commands the army.
I was just observing the situation. I don't know really what the experience was. I can't explain it, but here I was experiencing this pain.
In the writings of two men who lived in Europe during the Middle Ages. One was known as the king among prophets, and the other became a saint. Over 800 years ago in Ireland lived a bishop, a healer.
Vestige of this mystery, and I really want the door to open a little wider.
Each individual design contains a mystery, and while their technical aspects may be interpreted, they also have highly mystical meanings.
It was looking like an ordinary harvest for the Bickford farm near Red Deer. That was until they came across this strange and eerie sight.
I don't know who would do this or what would do this, but it's just huge, and I can't even believe it myself.
The 7 circles connect by lines to make a perfect star and take up nearly an acre of the Bickford's crop. It wouldn't be easy to create, and they have no idea how it got there.
It has to be someone, or maybe it's an alien, who knows?
When we consider the impact crop circles are having on the public.
Searching for the lost tomb. Then, in 1922, on the last day of his last dig, he finds a set of steps. He breaks through a wall. Someone asks, "Can you see anything?" Carter can barely speak. Yeah.
America, the United States, Europe, Canada, and now appear in Asia. While many come to
Astounding
them,
treasure.
many reject them.
Carter has made one of the greatest archaeological discoveries of all time, and it is shrouded in mystery. Why had this tomb been overlooked for 3,000 years, while all the others were looted by grave robbers? Tut is buried not in a royal tomb, but in modest chambers, hardly befitting a pharaoh.
Around about 1989.
A little pond in a quiet place is where the more shy birds will stop to bathe and drink.
Other Native American law, straight line means communication. When you have circles connected with circles and lines, you got communication between heaven and earth. Through that development, we started getting pictograms. we start seeing symbols which now have a meaning attached to them, symbolic meaning. So we're able to see what those mean, go back and reference our ancient past and find that there are relationships there, clues telling us that these people, these beings, know about our history. And this history is a very, very fundamental history. It's a very basic history
on
related
shaky
to
wings
nature and natural principles.
and makes his way to the...
Begin to emerge.
This is an event seldom seen,
that,
and we were
we
fortunate
started
to
getting onto
capture it
alchemical
on film.
symbols, the Barbary Castle tetrahedron, for example, symbols to do with esotericism.
The growing
symbols
young
which have
Hummer.
mathematical knowledge attached to them.
After each
Remains of the pharaoh.
nest, we have an unusual and close look at the female arriving with food, showing her wings as she moves around the nest.
Of the planetary motions of the stars and the heavenly bodies. Now this has been developing gradually throughout the 90s, and at the moment where we are at, or at least last season,
Yeah. Well, enjoy your money. And don't spend it all in one place.
All right, Sam. It'll last a long time.
I think I'll take a look up there.
Salvation every inch of the way.
Yet reincarnation resurfaced during the Renaissance. Giordano Bruno, Italy's leading philosopher and contemporary of Michelangelo, openly taught reincarnation and was finally taken before the Inquisition and burned at the stake. During the Enlightenment in Europe, French philosopher Voltaire said, "It is not more surprising to be born twice than once." English poets Blake and Wordsworth wrote about reincarnation. The list extends on to our own American pantheon of greats. Among them, Thomas Paine, John Adams, Walt Whitman, Thomas Edison, and Henry Ford. Benjamin Franklin composed his own epitaph. The body of B. Franklin, printer, like the cover of an old book, its contents torn out and stripped of its lettering and gilding, lies here, food for worms. But the work shall not be lost, for it will, as he believed, appear once more in a new and more elegant edition, corrected and improved by the author. Professor R. Elwood of the University
The rich land and forests left behind by the diminishing glaciers have also echoed to the sound of human voices. For thousands of years, native cultures lived along glacial rivers and open coastlines, sustained by an abundant supply of fish and wildlife. These early people left few marks upon the land.
In the 20th century, there have been many Eastern groups come to America. Groups like Western Zen and the Vedanta societies were established in the aftermath of the world's Parliament of Religions. Later in the 20th century, others joined them, such as the Self-Realization Fellowship and, of course, Krishna Consciousness beginning in the 1960s.
11 circles of varying sizes from about 15 feet in diameter to over 100 feet in diameter in one field. I went up to investigate those, and they were in the center of the field. There were no pathways into the
And actually just felt like spinning, and I spun around and I felt like I was going to lift off myself, and I just felt really elated. That's all I can say, just quite elated and quite peaceful, and it was just it was a sacred experience.
Parts of the landscape supported by for most, and the land was abandoned along with their claims and their dreams. After the turn of the century, men returned to expand their search for value.
Claims of hoaxing began in 1991 when the famous Doug and Dave
Subject that should be more carefully looked at. It should be taught in the schools. It's something that we all should think about, you know?
I think they don't teach reincarnation in public schools because they consider it a part of religion rather than science.
People can also control people's minds by withdrawing a subject from being seen, and censorship is done all the time.
They may not hear about it in school, but more than likely they'll see it on TV when they get home.
You are totally outside your body. The white light is now moving you back in time to a past life that explains your husband's rage and yet the power that you have over him. Describe what you look like. What are you wearing?
Armor.
Armor. How does it feel to wear this armor?
It's heavy.
Heavy. Tell me about that javelin. What are you doing with it?
I'm trying to pierce it through the hearts of my enemies.
Look into their eyes. Look into the eyes of the people that you're piercing with your javelin.
Formation yesterday. It's almost as if this phenomenon is saying, oh, you're claiming you do these, are you? Well, do that one.
This crop circle, called the Catherine wheel, is 780 feet in diameter and is composed of 409 circles. It occurred on the top of a mesa on a windy and rainy night. If anything, this spectacular circle should put an end to the concept that they're all man-made.
Something so enormous is happening in the world. And it's treated...
Chemical warfare, biological warfare, laser warfare, weapons that we don't even think that could possibly exist. And this would climax to the point where the world would be starving to death, to the point that some countries would even turn to cannibalism.
But those who believe in these predictions say that even if we are able to either escape or defeat the third Antichrist, we can do neither with nature. It is believed Nostradamus winds, furious hurricanes, devastating earthquakes.
Nostradamus speaks of a great shifting of the globe. A slow roll, which will...
is round, official. Would you like to have been the editor of the newspaper who published the headline, heavier than air?
And it is a warning. It is the final warning before Armageddon. Russia and America's friendship will be undermined by a Middle Eastern, North African source. It is my opinion, after 20 years,
and we went in and we saw this little boy playing stride piano.
Worthy of study for our own salvation.
Nostradamus originate? This vision into the future, could it be divine? The answer may come from the mouths of children. For many who have claimed the power of prophecy, their gift is not a matter of birthright. Instead, its appearance has been linked to some life-altering event. Fatima, Portugal, 1917. 3 children believed they were given a glimpse into the future. 9-year-old Lucia, 7-year-old Francisco, and 6-year-old Jacinta claimed visitation by a beautiful woman who entrusted them with secret messages, prophecies. While many appeared...
It doesn't fit our rational. And so that...
The 9-year-old girl, who today is a nun, and the Pope, John Paul II.
This is the part I'm looking forward to.
I've got mixed feelings. I'm not worried about it at all, but I feel a little bit excited, and it'll be absolutely wonderful. Fantastic if we do dig up any information that can prove to me as much as to anybody else, that I really was there once.
The following excerpts from the carefully documented film, The Reincarnation Experiments, are striking examples of unprejudiced scientific studies. Our first case history is Gwen MacDonald, a housewife living in Australia who had never left her native New South Wales. Under regression, she claimed to be Mary Duncan, a woman living in the county of Somerset about 200 years ago.
What are the other villages around your area so we can find your village?
Oh, Alford. Maybe Blawden. Maybe Stone Chapel.
Interesting names, but not there. Not on the most modern and large-scale maps. So to the older ones, back to the 18th century. And suddenly the names began to leap out. Alfred was there.
The song sparrow is a regular pond user, and shy thrushes are early morning visitors. Many of the young hummers hatched in nests around our yard now spend time in the trees close to our house, where they can make use of the flowers and feeders whenever they wish. We see them probing blossom after blossom in the nicotinas until their foreheads are...
Awaited the appointed day and hour.
The children were there, and this huge crowd was pressing in, and the rain was pouring down. And all of a sudden, the rain stopped, and the clouds parted, and the sun appeared. And then the crowd saw the sun begin to move and to dance in the sky, as it was described, and to fall down almost to the horizon.
The crowd was in absolute awe. There were many of the freethinkers from Spain and Portugal there who were very much against religion or anything of this nature, who immediately were convinced and fell on their knees and started.
Mean other things, mean something, and it's been known for thousands of years.
Despite the so-called miracle of the sun, there were still many questions as to the validity of the children's story. It would take time, but eventually even hardened...
It's describing the ancient laws, the cosmic laws. How does the universe work? How do we work? How do we fit in? What kind of matrix is this Earth, you know? But all this was known to the ancients, and they've encrypted them in symbols, and when it's imprinted in a field, it's an invitation to try and go back and try and understand what this is.
I think the crop circles communicate with us in a way that totally bypasses our rational mind. And I think part of the way that they do this is through their shape and vibration. And human beings have a wonderful way of being able to be empathetic to vibrations. And we can see this in the way that human beings respond to music. It's not a rational thought process. Our responses are emotional and they're immediate, and very often they don't make very much sense to us. And our responses to shape is very, very similar.
When you first see them, you think, I know that. I don't know how I know it, but I've seen this somewhere before.
Maison. La Baie Saint-Michel.
Est-ce que l'on a déjà fait un portrait de vous?
Court. On to rush to Versailles. Go past the church.
Once in France, she was able to give precise directions to the cathedral in which she had been married.
The big road goes between Rouen and Saint-Michel. It's a tower!
May 25th, Camp 4 at 21,000 feet. Hillary has teamed up with Tenzing Norgay, a guide who has spent years on the mountain. They set off in the warm spring sunshine, advancing towards the summit, still 8,000 feet above them. But now, Everest unleashes its fury. The temperature plummets to 40 below. The winds gust to 100 miles an hour. The air is so thin, it leaves them gasping and feeble. May 28th, at 27,900 feet. The rest of the expedition have tried to reach the summit and failed.
What? Eh? You know, you're a liar, Judge, a double-crossing liar.
Sheriff! Sheriff!
Now go out there and get rid of them. If you want me to treat your daughter like a gentleman. Go on.
And then we took her to a part of Dockland from which, if she had lived there before as James Burns, she should be able to find her way when the blindfold was...
There were many phenomena that took place that remain unexplained to this very day. The girls running backwards. This was common occurrence, regardless of the day or the hour. They actually ran as though they had wings on their feet.
Then the medical community arrived, searching for a more scientific explanation.
There was a time when doctors would burn a matchstick in front of their eyes to see if they would flicker their eyes and blink and wink. No, no reaction.
There is an interesting feeling in this place, and as we get closer to the center, yeah, it's a very similar feeling, but it's more uplifting.
It's amazing. It has the most amazing energy ever.
It's peaceful, but it's quite energizing as well.
To the Siemens mission. Let's have a look at this building. So familiar. They're all along here, all the way down. And the mission, Siemens mission.
Yes. And we don't know why. We can't put the finger on to it, saying this is why, this is what happens to us. We don't know, but it happens. It's on a very deep level, and it's very intense. And it, to those...
once stood exactly where she had said.
Oh, no. Well, I'm trying to remember what
are the first step in the process of continual change, continual beginnings. Layer by layer.
Operate throughout the world. A terrible heat will come. And during this time of heat, people will look for water and they will not be able to find it. And they're going.
Hillary uses his last reserves of strength and endurance to help him under the cliff.
The ice moves down slope, like a river.
We'll show some interesting events in the lives of a few of the many birds that live in and around our natural tree-surrounded farmyard.
It really seems to me like...
Shirley points at a ruby-throated hummingbird's nest fastened to a horizontal poplar branch about 30 feet above our heads. We often have 6 or 7 nesting females.
Expanded, it's affecting us physically. Also, the grain goes into the food chain. So if you think of homeopathic remedies, the grain from the crop circles are in beer and bread and all sorts of processed foods. This is actually going all over the world. This has been...
Dear, I feel like I've seen a ghost.
Whether they're realizing...
To be prophets often appear to have much in common. Childhood visions of beautiful women, the power to heal or project into the future. One man who claimed to hold these gifts was an American named Edgar Casey. Casey may have been history's most accurate and most documented psychic, but in everyday life he was a humble man whose powers were often as much a burden as a gift.
What to call Edgar Casey has always been a problem. I don't think that Edgar Casey himself would have chosen the title of prophet that carries so...
It goes out, I think, in a T. Oh, wow, look.
Well, that's the T you described, isn't it?
Yep, that wasn't there. That top floor, they've added that.
Right.
And it finished there, because that's all new. All of that's new. Because from that...
correct?
The female will sit on them between feedings for warmth and protection. Waxwing's nest. This was a good year for Saskatoons or Juneberries and other wild fruit, so the waxwings are nesting in many places around the yard. The waxwings in our area...
Men are
The
created
voices of a
equal.
struggle nearly as
But in the
ancient
southern
as the
half
earth
of the new
itself.
republic, the economy was founded
The
on the labor
exposed
of
bedrock
slaves.
over which the glacier...
That dispute would tear the young country apart and ignite a war of terrible ferocity, sacrifice, and suffering. That an invasion into the heart of the Union would destroy the North's willingness to fight? Or was the turning point of the Civil War an unintentional collision?
And the adults will feed them small pieces of crack.
Meltwater flows under and through the glaciers, creating caves of exquisite architecture and
Most of the
unfamiliar...
Saskatchewan farmers that we talk to are very open-minded and actually did have, I would say, an above-average interest in it, or an above-average level of acceptance of it. And to me, that's just part of the implication that there is something or someone behind it, because it's almost like it's picking out people even to do this with.
It's almost as if there's a sentient being behind these, because when someone attached interest to these, they started replying back.
Lots of people saying, well, this is Mother Earth. These are why we're getting these shapes in the fields. She's crying out for help. And Colin and George said, well, hang on a moment, you know, if this is the case, there is a symbol from Mother Earth. It's called the Gaia symbol. And lo and behold, the following day, there was a call from a farmer to Colin Andrews saying, I've got one of these very strange things in my field. Would you like to come down and have a look? And as they flew over the field, there was the Gaia symbol.
Certainly, there have been experiments, and I myself have been involved in one of these, where people have tried to get crops.
The liver. We have infection in a leg.
Laura has a bad sore on her leg that is terribly festered. She has a fever, is now bedridden. The doctors want to amputate.
Yes, they are in pain. Thy lesion is from the bite of a tiny brown spider 4 months ago while sleeping.
What is the treatment for cure and relief of this body?
Apply oil of smoke for 2 weeks. Will save our leg.
Bancroft a year before they owned up that they had actually sent me on a wild goose chase to this spot, having had a pilot check it out prior to me going, that there was nothing there.
And I've watched them.
The young waxwings have left the nest, but continue to depend on their parents for food while learning to fend for themselves. The well-fed young hummers will sometimes be coaxed with a gentle bill nudging from the female to open its mouth for feeding. A good nectar flower is the scarlet runner bean.
Hello everybody, just wanted to hop on and see how y'all are doing. What can I say? We got a lot of color. We got tons of color going on tonight. And some very interesting video. Edgar Casey was always a favorite of mine. He's awesome.
Successfully used regression as a method of diagnosis in over 6,000 cases that he treated.
The sleeping prophet is what they called him.
University of Miami.
Anyways,
Remarkable success.
I guess we'll
For example,
get back to the show.
migraines for 40 years.
Thanks for watching, everybody. I appreciate it.
Uncovered 6 lifetimes in which she'd had injuries to her head, and one important one in which she had crushed the skull of her baby sister when she.
The young kingbirds are now venturing away from their nest. The parents are steadily carrying insects and coaxing the young to fly. The ponds.
Day 3. General Meade's army waits on high ground called Cemetery Ridge.
There will be a panic in the money centers. Not only Wall Street, the closing of the world in many other centers.
Prophecy of the 1929 stock market crash slipped out during a routine reading months before the market collapsed. Casey made hundreds more prophecies, all documented and filed away. It was believed he predicted the dates that the Second World War would start and finish, as well as the social and racial upheavals that would rip the United States in mid-century. He also foresaw the discovery of laser light and blood tests in medicine, the unearthing of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the fall of communism in Russia.
An organization for education with an exempt status. We now have inaugurated a training program 2 years ago whereby people who are therapists already, psychotherapists, can have training in past life techniques.
We may solve some problems. Rich or poor, black or white, bird or beast.
The middle, the whole flipping thing comes from it.
The centers of the circles also show a variety, swirling clockwise, counterclockwise, or even radiating outwards.
Go into the sea. There will be a shifting of the poles, so that what has been a frigid land will become the more tropical.
There were readings that pointed to change that would be big enough so that the Great Lakes emptied directly into the Gulf of Mexico, changes in the general sea coastlines.
What is the coastline now of many a land will be the bed of the ocean.
Casey gave some predictions that are pretty grim, that are somewhat frightening. He did talk about the destruction of New York and the western portion of America.
It's generally concluded by researchers that these highly evolved symbols are from non-human sources, possibly extraterrestrial. In fact, many have witnessed glowing lights and strange craft over the places where crop circles have appeared. What has not been ruled out, however, is that Gaia, or Mother Earth herself, is sending thought forms to humanity.
I believe there has to be an intelligence behind this. When you look at the evolution of how...
To the proposition that all men are created equal. Now, we're in...
The forest continues to sustain a multitude of human needs.
We cannot resist using our cameras on the trusting little birds. With modern equipment, we're able to show their rapid wing beats at a slower speed.
And even today, miners still search the forest for precious minerals, scoured from the earth by the work of ancient farmers.
I feel it's the acquiescence of the plant kingdoms, and I feel it's our own psyche, our own spirituality, our own connectedness or divinity within all things that are also creating these symbols. So that when you have all those four things coming together, they hit a critical mass and an expression of...
No way. This is true. This cannot be true. Until I went and studied, and I saw that it was absolutely irrefutably true.
These researchers believe the Psalms predict events such as the rise of Hitler and another dictator in the Middle East, and that each psalm corresponds to each.
A feeder filled with sunflower seeds is used by hungry. The swallows have hatched, and
Some researchers
they will be busy from around their nest. The two young hummers are old enough now to begin.
In verse 17.
Fascinating things about crop circle imprint, but also the invisible imprint that comes with it. And sometimes the geometry that's available in the design is not necessarily the one that you see.
They combine ancient symbols with advanced.
Now, what's on the other side of the building?
Well, the building doesn't have a straight wall at the back. There, it goes out, I think, in a T.
Discover your ancient past, which is now buried in the sands of time.
But the Psalms don't only describe the historical past.
The nest tree. Their
According to
parents
Church
bring
and
them to
Stem,
the suet
the Psalms
feeder.
seem to foretell of
Here they will often sit right in the feeder while their parents put pieces of suet in their mouths. They soon learn to pick and eat for themselves. A fresh supply of suet from the shop is put out every. The ponds are also.
The voices of a struggle nearly as ancient as the earth itself.
He goes on to say that Israel is not going to get involved in this war. 1,000 shall fall at thy side, 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee. This psalm was so remarkable that it became the favorite song of the soldiers in the desert. If Church and Stearman are correct, maybe there is hidden meaning in Psalm 93 as well. He only has 5 verses in it. But verse 3 says, the floods have lifted up, O Lord, the floods have lifted up their voice. The world, not only in the upper Mississippi, but in
A quadrangle, and the main entrance was at the center of the quadrangle, but at the right-hand wing of the quadrangle, as you face the main entrance, was a chapel. And that ran down on the right-hand side. The building itself was 3 stories tall, and across the top floor were the dormitories. What I'm saying now is not there now, but it's how it was. There's also a second
indicates that God will early destroy the wicked out of the land. This word early means
so that we would aspire to something greater than ourselves. There's a great parallel there.
2001.
Very similar effects on people. It's taken down the whole of.
The Bible.
There's just nothing there.
150 psalms. If Church and Stearman are correct and each psalm corresponds to 1 year, this roadmap of prophecy may dead end in the year 2050. Revelation, the final chapter of the New Testament, suggests that the biblical predictions of the
There's an opening here, which goes to the cloisters.
Right.
And then this is the staircase you're talking about.
So that's the staircase there, and that's no longer there.
That's no longer there.
Right, well, that's why we couldn't find it.
That's right. Well, let me see if we can out here.
Without ever having seen any marked floor plans, without ever having seen the original drawings, it was abundantly clear that Helen knew things about a building long ago altered from its shape in the 1830s, that she knew where an old staircase had once curved, where ancient walls had once stood. she knew.
From this upper landing here, in the main centre here of the building, was it possible to look down into that main assembly hall?
Yes, it is, or it was, definitely.
Right, and that is a lecture theatre to the left?
That is lecture theatre, indeed.
Right,
yes.
fine. Great.
That's right. I wonder if you could tell me if you were at a tutorial and a discussion.
The connection with sound.
Are they merely way stations on the road
There
to
were
eternity?
designs that were giving me
Or do they still hold mysterious secrets beyond our understanding? The ancient Egyptians believed that a person must be well equipped and well preserved for his journey across the river of death. But when the mummy was the god king himself, would the Egyptians?
We maintain a good supply of butcher's string.
You know, the sacred sites were constructed as sound chambers, and sound was most important because it shifted and changed. It had an effect on us on every level. All the systems.
Pasture rails.
Vibration. And so when you step
Kingbirds
into a
also
circle,
use of the string and horsehair for their nest building.
and
We find oriole nests constructed from all horsehair, all string, or a combination of both.
Understand everything.
We got $50,000, Johnny. All ours, kid. Yeah. $50,000 all in one pile. Bet you never seen so much money, have you? We're gonna enjoy the rest of our lives together, Johnny. Look, it's all ours. You know, Johnny, out there is Mexico. I always wanted somewhere down near the sea. Yeah. But I always kept putting it off, and you know why? Johnny. Because of my nephews. Zeke, then Jess, and then Red. None of them. They wouldn't agree. And listen, I'll tell you something. I ain't getting no younger.
If you look at this from an esoteric point of view, there's
Migraines for 40 years.
addiction that seems to be related to these happenings. The Bible talks about the signs appearing in heaven and in the earth below at this particular point in time. Native American prophecies talk about a lot of the symbols manifesting at this particular point in time, at the point where earth changes and changes in consciousness would take place. We have the readings of Edgar Casey and other psychics who predicted changes again for this particular point in time. So it seems to be connected to a change in our actual cultural perception of the world, change and evolution as to where we are as people, and it seems to be predicted at this point in time to happen before 2012, which is the end of the Mayan calendar.
We really have come to a point now where we are on a razor blade, we're on a knife edge, and we have the possibility, we have the choice between evolving or devolving. And the mechanistic way of thinking that everything is dead and we can do whatever we want and it has no consequence is taking us very, very fast to the iceberg, very, very fast indeed. And I believe that that route is now close to us, and we have to go in another direction.
Part of the core of why we are being addressed now is that we are in the middle of a dimensional shift, a frequency shift.
These early people left few marks upon the land. Of their religion remain.
Time to a fifth dimensional reality within which both time and matter crumble away to that which is more accessible to and manipulable by consciousness.
My interest in the crop circle phenomenon started in It had 65 circles in the outside ring or the asteroid belt. If you include the interconnecting ring, there were 66 circle elements, one for each book of the Bible. A second 1995 formation had 27 circle elements in the outside ring or asteroid belt, one for each book of New Testament. In 1996, we received two huge ram's horns formations and another crop circle formation in the shape of an ear with 39 circles, one for each book of the Old Testament.
Is it our destiny to be forever caught in a cycle of birth and death, of old age and disease? Or is there a way out? And a
crop circle pictograms, it would most likely use something easily accessible to all, such as the Bible. In 1997, I thought if these crop circles are fulfilling Bible prophecies, we should expect future formations to be those of the symbols of the seven churches. For example, a tree of life, a Star of David, and a crown. Lo and behold, since then we've had a menorah tree of life, a Kabbalah tree of life,
needs, providing wood, paper, and fuel. These streams still issue their secret call to the salmon, a call we cannot hear. But their return to these forest streams each year provides a living for
find remains of the Pharaoh. What killed him? Does the dead king leave a clue? Forensic experts examine the skull. They find a fracture and chips of bone inside the skull cavity, as if he'd received a powerful blow to the head.
Like the glaciers,
The jury's still out on the authenticity of this formation. Yet, there are only a small handful of scientists on Earth who could decipher the original binary code and come up with such a sophisticated reply.
Many feel the face on Mars formation in the same field was
Buried in opulent majesty in the Valley of the Kings, are ransacked.
they are the sculpting tool, Nation's continuing art of creation. Millions of acres have emerged from under their domain.
As a message for mankind. The Great Pyramid was built about 2623 BC during the reign of Khufu, second king of the fourth Egyptian dynasty. The builders came from Arabia.
In Egypt, the mystic
pyramids, training a workforce before they even started building the Great Pyramid. And when the Great Pyramid was built and finished, these builders left.
The monument they built may have been created for the living and not the dead.
The Great Pyramid was built 7.5 years after the pyramid was built, and he never intended that to be his tomb. One of the puzzling aspects of the Great Pyramid was there were no hieroglyphics found in the passage walls or ceiling or the sarcophagus. In this respect, the Great Pyramid is silent.
The French had already attempted the job, but had given up.
Protect them from the larger birds, chipmunks, and squirrels. The female will make many trips.
Scientific knowledge of unbelievable precision that was unknown to the ancient Egyptians.
We find in the pyramid scientific features.
Moved comfortably into the coming fifth dimension. And the circles, I believe, are attempting to bring us...
In hand holds a message encoded in ASCII computer language. It reads, "Beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. Much pain, but still time."
Good morning, Father.
Beautiful morning.
Ice circles appear to be a new phenomena, witnessed by many. This ice circle could not be man-made, since it occurred in the wind and cold on a lake in the middle of the night, with the melting of the ice in all directions.
Three BC.
Saturday. My husband came into the house and he said, "Joan, there's something spectacular going on up there at the creek." And I said, "What is it?" He said, "You have to come and see it because I can't explain what it is." He said, "And it probably never happened again." My husband, I ran up to the creek. I couldn't believe it. Believe it. You couldn't walk in the...
World War II.
My husband saw it early, and the circle was going around. It was just so perfect.
The end of time. This same writings of two men who lived in Europe during among prophets, and the other being
Hello, everybody. This concludes our session for today. I hope you had a very nice stream. I know I had a lot of fun. What can I say? We'll be back probably on Sunday. Yeah, this was a very interesting stream. Lots of color, lots of different video, and yeah, we went over an hour, so thank you for watching, and this concludes our session. Look at this though, this is funny.
They have been helping us all along. They've never left.
Anyways, we're gonna end on purple, if that's okay. You know how I like to end on purple. So we will do that now.